I am a daughter and a sister of two younger brothers, Xavier, 17, and Lucas, who's 8. Why am I here? I am here because of my family. They anchor me, my community anchors me. In the 1980s, El Salvador, which is where my family's from, was going through a brutal civil war with an incredibly corrupt government against essentially the poor people in the country. My grandfather at the time was a director of a school in a village, and because he was this mentor to these young students who were organizing against the military government, his name was put on a blacklist. So the community essentially was always under constant vigilance. There were obviously informants telling the military of what was going on in the town. One day, my grandmother was working here in the United States, cleaning houses, trying to earn money to get her husband and her 5 children to the United States to reunite with her at the time. And his school was bombed, so he evacuated his students as best he could. No one was hurt, he wasn't hurt. But after that, the looming threat was a little bit too close for comfort. He phoned my grandmother, and she did the best she could to get everyone over to United States. They settled in a community, Brentwood, Long Island, New York. When I say I'm from Long Island, people often think the Hamptons. While yes, the Hamptons are on Long Island, there are a lot of communities on Long Island, and there are a lot of pockets of poverty everywhere. I happen to be stuck between 2 very rich neighborhoods, just like you see in most towns across the country, very geographically separate. You have railroad tracks on one side that separate the rich and the poor. So Brentwood is this enclosed area where we're working class immigrant community. There are stereotypes about Brentwood all across Long Island, but you know what? To me, Brentwood is home. To me, Brentwood is somewhere where people aren't shy about lending a helping hand or aren't really mean. Our immigrant experience really unites us, because in a country where most people don't have much family there, we're all we have. So in this community, my family settled. And Brentwood has really shaped me in not only my values to immigrant workers, immigrant rights and workers' rights, to human rights, really. I go to Brown. I'm a rising senior. I'm concentrating in history and ethnic studies. So I really appreciate the storytelling that's been going on. It's been really inspiring for me to listen to everyone's stories. One day, my grandfather, who worked in a factory because his degree of higher education didn't count in the United States, so he worked in a factory when he got here for 40+ years. But because of the work that he was doing, it caused a lot of health problems. He ended up being hospitalized and just being put on bed rest. And one winter night, I was just talking with him, and I was asking him about his life in El Salvador and his life as a teacher. And he told me that story. And at that point, I wasn't so politicized that I couldn't connect the dots. But after coming to Brown and being immersed in a community where very few people looked like me or came from communities where I came from, it was isolating. I had to forge my own communities and seek out people, to be my support system, because at home, my parents are divorced. I grew up with my grandparents and my mom. They have 5 children. They have 18 grandchildren. We're a very tight-knit community, so I've always had that support. Coming to Brown, I had to make it, and you know what? It worked out, because I have a lot of really amazing friends who share the same values that I do. And I got involved with the Brown Immigrant Rights Coalition, and I got involved with the Student Labor Alliance later on. But it wasn't really until my sophomore year that I really began to connect the dots to see how everyone's struggles are united. I went on a spring break civil rights research trip to Mississippi, and we visited a spot called Glendora, Mississippi. Glendora, Mississippi is where Emmett Till's body was decimated, and they have a museum there in his honor. And crossing those train tracks into that particular area was nauseating for me. It felt like I was going back in time. It felt like it was the Great Depression era. Just not only physically, like seeing all of the poverty around me, but just this aura in the air. It was just really repressive. And then we went to the museum. It was very emotional. We get into the car and we're going back to the next museum. And then we cross the railroad tracks again, and we have all these beautiful suburban houses with white picket fences and green lawns. And everyone was emotionally disturbed, and I was nauseous at that point. So it was really at that point that I realized how united our struggles are, that the economic disparity is not just in my community. You know, I think theoretically I understood that, but going somewhere else and seeing that, I really understood that, and it hit home. So that's one of the really main experiences that brought me here. Coming for the summer and leaving for the summer is difficult. My family will ask, why are you leaving? When are you coming back? But what they don't understand is they've given me the strength and inspiration to leave, and I leave for them.